We want to consider two different types of objects. The first of these are vectors. These look like arrows. They're just line segments with a direction. We typically denote vectors with lowercase letters with little arrows drawn over the top of the letter. The other object we want to discuss is scalars. For our purposes, these are real numbers like 3, -5, and pi. For a vector, we can refer to the head and the tail of the vector. The tail is where the vector starts, and the head is where the vector ends. When dealing with vectors, we often want to reference the magnitude of the vector. This is also known as the length or the norm of the vector. It tells us the distance from the tail to the head of the vector. We tend to use double bars around the vector to denote the magnitude. And a unit vector is a vector with a magnitude of 1. Two vectors pointing in the same or the opposite direction are said to be parallel. Instead of perpendicular, we have orthogonal vectors. These are vectors that would be perpendicular if we put the two tails of the vectors together. To see some examples of vectors, let's suppose we have a boat that we are sailing in the ocean. We can use a vector to represent the linear path we want the boat to take. The direction of the vector is the direction we want the boat to move. The magnitude of the vector is the distance we want the boat to move. However, there are other vectors acting on us as well. For example, the wind is pushing the sails. The direction and speed of the wind will create another vector acting upon the boat. Finally, we also have the current in the ocean. This is another vector that is acting upon the boat, with its own direction and magnitude, which are determined by the direction and strength of the current.